Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the August 2025, and let's call it the late summer edition of the PowerShell community call. Everyone is welcome to join and discuss the PowerShell project and its development. We have an agenda posted in the meeting chat in the link, which I just put in the chat message. So if you want to check out the agenda, please feel free to pose questions either in that discussion issue or right here in the chat here. I think most people do it right in the meeting chat. Please check out and follow our code of conduct as well. And with that, let's go ahead and dive in. We've got a pretty big agenda. First thing on the agenda, so I just saw the smooth turned up to max and there's an egg. I look like an egg. The first agenda item is a conference that several of us were just at last week, which was TechMentor. TechMentor runs the organizers for that run a couple of great conferences every year, Orlando and over here on the West Coast, here in Redmond. TechMentor's been around for, wow, a really long time, and the organizers do a really nice job with this. We had a great time. I want to thank the organizers for inviting us over. So myself, Sean Wheeler, and MVP Stephen Judd, and our friend James Petty also was there, and we did several sessions. We did an all-day getting started with PowerShell thing, which I'm really glad I love doing those, and I'm really glad we got a chance to do that because I've got a follow on to the story. We also got a chance to talk about things like the history of PowerShell. We talked about PlatEPS, DSC. Sean and I got a great chance to share AI Shell with folks and talk about that. Stephen couldn't make it, so Stephen, we did our best. Not as good as you, but I think we did a pretty good job representing AI Shell for you. So we had a really good time, and again, I'd like to thank the organizers for it. One thing that was pretty interesting that happened last week, and this is one of the reasons why I always like helping folks getting started with PowerShell, is I've always used this phrase for about the last 20 years with people that are saying, do I really need to help people, learn this, or do I really, want to take the time to help somebody get better at PowerShell, that kind of stuff. And the phrase that I always say is that there's new IT babies born every month. And I think it's kind of a cute phrase, and it's a testament to the constant growth of the IT community. Obviously, there are new IT babies born every month. But at TechMentor, we had a great representation of this. After the initial pre-con, where we spent all day talking about getting started with PowerShell, someone came up to me and was asking me questions, and he said to me all of a sudden, he said, "I bet you I'm the youngest person you'll have all day today." And I said, "Really? How old are you?" He was 15. He was 15 at a conference here at Microsoft. And the reason that he was here was because he was interested in getting into IT. The reason he was interested because, well, his dad works in IT. And I just want to give a huge shout out to his dad and to Levi, who showed up to the conference. I think it's great that if you have interest to be able to go to a conference like this. There were folks like Rob Hidman from Microsoft talking about Server 2025, whole bunch of consultants and excellent technical people talking about solutions around Azure and on-prem solutions. What a great environment. And it turns out that his dad told him that, if you're going to get into IT, one of the first places to get started is with PowerShell. And so he not only came to our one-day session, he then came to all of our sessions and asked great questions. And so I just want to give a huge shout out to Levi and to all of the new IT babies that are born every day, and welcome them to PowerShell. And as long as you keep coming, we'll keep talking about it. So with that, let's go ahead and go on with the, and I just throw this out to Sean Wheeler if he wants to say anything. But with that, let's go on with the rest of our agenda. And let's talk about Dungbo. Are you around? Can we talk about the 7.6 preview?
Yeah, hi. So we are preparing for the 7.6 preview 5 release, but it's still blocked right now on some internal work. So we're working through that, and hopefully we'll get the release out next week or the week after next week, if we can. So that's a yeah, it's a last preview before the RC, so we try to get things done and to verify the work we do in the around the build, around the PowerShell build infrastructure. So it takes some time.
Thanks, Darbo. And as Darbo was talking about, one of the other things I want to point out, and Sydney was reminding me of this the other day, these preview releases that we're getting to now, we're now starting to get to that time of the year where we're starting to look at RC as we come up to the 7.6 release. And this is going to be a 7.6 long-term service release, or LTS. So it's really important that we get stable before we do the release. We ship on quality, not on a date. And as Sydney was reminding me, remind everybody to say, hey, make sure that you're testing these and you're checking out our previews right now, and let us know with feedback if there's anything that we need to be aware of before we release the long-term service release. So welcome to the ship train, and help us out with that. We really appreciate it. Next up is, oh, I'm so excited for this, Steve.
Well, actually, why don't we have Dombo continue, because he was already talking, and then we'll get to me next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
On AI Shell.
Okay. So today I will try to demo the AI Shell work.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is great.
Let me share my screen. All right, let me get started. So AI Shell consists of an executable called ASH. So we can see that. And also a PowerShell module called AI Shell. It's the same name. So like import AI Shell. And you can see that it has exposed 4 commands from the AI Shell module. And their corresponding aliases are like AI run, ask AI, fix it, and AI sh. So the start AI shell will open ASH in the sidecar of the current PowerShell tab. Invoke ASH allows the user to chat with the AI shell from within PowerShell. And when running into an error, the resolve error command can help explain the error and suggest a fix using AI shell. And the invoke AI command is a utility command for AI shell to run commands in a connected PowerShell session. So we will first run start AI shell to open it up. So AI shell is deeply integrated with the PowerShell session from where it's started. It's using a bidirectional channel to do the like integration with the PowerShell session. So you can interact with the AI shell from within PowerShell and vice versa. Let me quickly run a query and see how it does it. Let's see. I want to know about the configs for Git. And that's a command I want. So in this case, I can run code post to insert the command into my PowerShell prompt. And I can there's key bindings. There's also default key bindings for doing this post command action, which is a Control DD. So I can do that too to do the same. You can see it's just gonna run the same code post command, and with the command posted into my PowerShell prompt. So let me switch to the PowerShell and run it. Okay. So I don't want to constantly switch between the AI shell and the PowerShell. So in fact, I can stay in PowerShell and run Ask AI to continue to chat. So let's see, I got this information about where my Git configs are stored and the configurations, what the configurations are. I want to ask a question about like which file is actually going to be used when I specify the -- global. So you can see that it sends the query to the AI shell from within PowerShell. And then I can ask like, what about the program file one? Like if the -- global is updating my user config files, what about the program file one? Oh, sorry. Okay. So in this case, okay, I know that the dash system is the one I'm gonna need if I want to update the program file version of the config git config file. So from within PowerShell, I can do ask AI post code. It will get me the git config. You can see that it's put into the AI shell. Like when you install the when you import the AI shell module, it actually set up a predictor as well. So in this case, if I post the code from the AI shell into my PowerShell session, if there are multiple lines, then it's gonna be like the multi-line commands will be used as a prediction by the predictor come along with the AI shell module. So in this case, I can just select this one. Oh, sorry. I can just select this one and like update the actual values and run it. Or I can I don't have to run a command. I can do the same in natural language. So I could say ask AI. Let's see. Post the dash system command to shell, and it will do the same. This is because AI shell has built-in tools to interact with the connected PowerShell session. Like I said, the AI shell command like git shell, those 4 commands are used for users to interact with the AI shell functions in PowerShell. And at the same time, yes, you can, if you are staying in the AI shell window, you can interact with PowerShell using the built-in tools within the AI shell. Okay, let's go back and show the resolve error, which is like the alias is fixed. So let's see I get an error when running commands. So service, I run get service. I can see that there are some red text getting output in here. So I can just run fix it. I will extract the errors and send it to the AI shell for it to explain and maybe suggest a fix. And it's the same for native command. So for example, you see I have a file untracked. I want to clean it up. So I do clean dot, and it failed. And in this case, I can just run fix it, and it can tell me why it fixed. It basically like gets the output of the command. You can see over here. Command, see it gets output. Fatal clean requires true and -f, and then you're gonna use that information as a context to explain the problem and maybe suggest a fix. Okay, so let's get to the AI shell side. Crash it. We can like within the AI shell, you can view the built-in commands by using the MCP commands. They're gonna show by the way, AI shell supports MCP servers as well. And currently, I don't have any MCP servers set up for it. And the built-in tools are actually represented as MCP server, even though it's not, but it's represented as so. So you can see that there's a server called AI shell, and those are the tools exposed by it. So there are commands for retrieving context information from the connected PowerShell session, like get working directory, get command history, get terminal content, environment variables, and there are action tools that can do stuff like copy the code into clipboard, post it into the terminal, like what I just showed. I can post the code using natural language, and it can run commands in the terminal. Basically, run the commands in the connected PowerShell. So I think this is very powerful, as you don't have to remember the commands and the flags for what you want to do. Just ask AI shell and let it generate the command and run it for you. Of course, you can review the command before you run it and learn how it does how it does stuff in PowerShell, for example, in this way. So let's try to do something like that. I want to list all the storage accounts on my current subscription using AZ PowerShell. Run it, please. So you see that you're gonna call the built-in to run command in terminal, and I'm gonna run it, and you can see that it's actually running a command in the AI run proxy command. The reason we have this proxy command is I believe many of you have used the GitHub Copilot in VS Code, and it's also able to run commands in the VS Code terminal, but it has a support from the terminal layer, so that when you are like the internal tools for VS Code, it's like when the tool is getting called, it's actually telling the terminal to send keys to the current active shell. So everything is handled in the terminal. Like terminal send the key to it, and terminal record where the output starts, and terminal like basically extract out the output because it's knows where the output starts, and then send that output back to the tool. But in PowerShell, we don't have the support from the Windows terminal level, so we have to do it from the PowerShell level, and that's why we have to use this process command to actually run it. Like it handles the streaming behavior, and it's able to get all the outputs and arrows as if you are seeing in the console, and send that to the AI shell. So you can see that it gets all the results I want, and it shows it in the table here. And I can say like, I'm interested in this one. I'm interested in this in this storage account. So I can see, does it contain blob containers list? So we try to do this. I can review the command. Okay, it assign it to the name variable, and it creates a try to get a context using the resource group name and the account name, and then you try to do this. So let me try to run it. It seems correct. Okay, I finished. So you see that there are blobs, and there are 4 blobs and the name of them. So as you can see, it's a great way to interact with the AI shell. Like if you want to do something, for example, in Azure, but you don't know exactly what command to use or what flags to use, this is a good way to get started. Like it can generate command for you and run it for you. And if it runs into error, it will know that error and try to iterate over, to create a better commands. So now let me show how AI shell can retrieve information from within a PowerShell. So let's see. For example, git stash push h. Let's see. I'm not familiar with the git stash push command. And when I see the help, I see keep index. It's saying keep index. Well, it's not very helpful. I don't know what it does. So in this way, I can do that. ASH. So ask AI. Sorry. Pick my window and explain what does keep index do. So you can see that it sends a request to the AI shell side, and the AI shell will call this built-in tool get terminal content to pick the window and then explain it. So it know that, okay, you are running a git stash push, you are having this content from the help, and you're asking about the keep index of this git command. Like I said before, AI shell also support MCP servers. So I'm gonna demo that. For now, let me quit it and open up the MCP JSON file. Like MCP JSON file is under the root folder of the AI shell configuration folder. So it's very simple. Like it just have servers, and we're trying to use the same configuration. Well, a similar configuration. It's not the same because there are features we don't support. There are features in the VS Code that we don't support, but it's a very similar feature as in the VS Code GitHub Copilot. So okay, let me add a new MCP server. So I'm gonna use the fetch MCP server, which is it's able to read URL and get the content from it. Okay, so let me go back and start it again. So now you'll see there's there's a note when you start it up. You see in the one MCP server configured. So run MCP to see more information about it. You can see that now we have one more server, which is called fetch, and it's supposed one tool from it called fetch. So let me try it out. So let's see. Okay, I can run this, fetch this show profiler from this Git. Let's see if I can do it work. Yeah, I'm gonna call it. And they're gonna like display the whole script from this show profiler. And then I can just follow up. I can just ask follow-up questions like, what does it do? And it's gonna explain like the functionality of the script. So yeah, that's all for my demo today. I'm just trying to show that it's a great utility tools like assistant in your PowerShell session. For beginners, for PowerShell beginners, like the new IT babies, they're gonna be great to. I think they're gonna be a great tools to just stay in AI shell and ask questions and see how it does the work using PowerShell running on the left side, and learn from it. And for experienced users, they can just focus in their shell and ask questions only when needed. Like for example, when I run into a case I don't know about the flag of a command, that's the time where the AI shell can help. Yep, that's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dongbo. That was a great demo. Steve, it's up to you now.
So I'm going to talk about DCV3. So we just had a preview 4 release last Tuesday. This is a change log on the repo. You can kind of see there's been a lot of changes. So first I want to call out to Heis, who's been doing some really great work, not just like adding features, like adding a lot of functions, but also doing a lot of doc work. I also want to call out to Thomas, who recently joined the DC working group, and he's been opening a lot of good issues in the repo as well. So I think, and I'm not gonna I don't want to exclude anyone else, but those two have been kind of doing a lot of work, so very phenomenal. So I'm not going to go over all the details here, but I want to cover 2 things real quick. First one is one of the things I added. I forget if I added this in the last preview or this preview, but because we've been adding more and more functions, so each preview has different set of functions, and each version, once it releases, will have different set of functions. You now have a DC function list command. So this will show you all the functions in that build, the category, the function name, some argument information. And of course, this is all JSON. So let's see if I do this right. Then if you want to programmatically consume this, so you can imagine in the future, maybe we'll have a MCP server that uses this information. Nothing happening yet other than an idea on that right now, but maybe next community call out something. So that's one thing. The other thing I want to show is with this preview, you can now consume Bicep files directly with the DSC executable. All right, now I want to put out a warning. Bicep integration is still work in progress. We made some, we have some basically hello world works, but I would not definitely use this anywhere close to production. All right, there are some known issues. I've actually caused Bicep to crash, but we'll continue down this path. But the idea here is like, this is a Bicep file, very simple. You must have target scope desired set configuration. This is how Bicep knows this is going to emit a DSC file versus an ARM template. Here I'm just using one of our resource that we ship to make it easy to diagnose problems. This is the Echo resource. ARM, meaning Bicep, now requires a version string. So this is something we need to still reconcile with them because we use Semver versus date, but they require date for this to not throw an error. So here I'm just using a simple, this is the friendly name, example echo, and I'm outputting hello world. So let's run that here. I think I have it in my history. And I'm going to run this with the debug trace level so we can kind of see some of the output. But basically, you don't need to worry about using Bicep first to transpile it into JSON. You just basically pass it directly to DSC. DSC, okay, if I go up here, see if I can find it. So it already found the extension that I wrote that calls out to the Bicep command line. So I found that. Extensions for import are bound to file extensions. So it knows that this .bicep file needs to use this. So it's calling Bicep with these arguments. And the nice thing is that the Bicep commandment can just do a dash standard out, so that the transpile JSON out goes to standard out, it reads it back in, and then DC is just going to enact upon it all this other stuff is written to that. So you see the output. So I would love people to start playing with this, with the caveat that this is still work in progress and there are known issues. But the eventual goal is that if you prefer, then you can always write in JSON. I hate that. You can write in YAML, which is a little bit better. Or, ideally you can write in Bicep, which is more human readable, writable. You get nice IntelliSense and VS Code and stuff like that. I mean, we do have some level of IntelliSense with YAML using the schema file, this JSON schema file. And then we'll continue to work towards having actual IntelliSense for like properties and stuff that isn't there. That's pretty much it. So we'll continue this journey on 3.2. I expect previews to come out roughly every 3 to 4 weeks or so when we have changes that need some validation. No specific target date for when we GA, but this calendar year is the goal. That's it.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Andy, do you want to talk about some of the PSReadLine work that you've been doing?
Sure. Also, honestly, very excited about that Bicep work. I'd like to get back to that. Got that prototype started, and for now, I've actually been working over in the PSReadLine space. Let me get my screen shared over here. So if any of you have ever tried to use PowerShell under a screen reader, you'll know it has not really worked historically. Let me choose the right window. 1 second. Dev box. I have to do this through a window, A, because I need a Windows machine, and B, because that computer can be muted while a screen reader is on, so you don't all hear a screen reader as I try to show this. So what you'll see, right, like today in PowerShell, if you've got a screen reader up, such as I've got NVDA, which is a very common open source screen reader for Windows, and you start PowerShell, it goes ahead and tells you that, hey, we've detected there's a screen reader and we disabled PSReadLine for compatibility purposes. And you could, re-import it and see what happens. And I'm going to just do that here real quick. It's not imported, so I can't even do something as simple as copy that. So I got to carefully type this out. So if we do go ahead and run PSReadLine while we've got like NVDA, right here, this little window is actually showing us what NVDA would be reading and what you could hear if I didn't have this remote machine muted. So I'm going to type out like get child item. Do you see what all just happened there? I've only written get-chil, but we actually got, so much text over here. We got the first couple letters I started typing, get dash, and then it actually for some reason went back and read out branch and then read out get child item. And some of this you can definitely ascribe to the inline predictions right here, but that's not the only thing going on. You've got, it actually went back and read out the word child, even though I haven't written, it went and reread the CHIL that I had typed, and then again, it repeated itself to read out with the prediction. But if I go back over here and like move my cursor, yeah, it's reading the characters as I'm moving over them, but I'm gonna go ahead and hit, I think Control D should hopefully work in Windows mode. No, it doesn't. Sorry, I usually run this in Emacs edit mode. I'm gonna just go ahead and hit a backspace. I'm specifically showing that I'm editing text within a block of text that I've written, not at the end, and delete that. It has to reread the whole thing. It can't just read that I deleted a character. It's rereading the whole thing because it has to re-render it. That's kind of this root issue that we've known about. If I open this up, at least since 2021 and probably sooner, there's a redraw that PSReadLine does, and this makes a lot of sense. If you go ahead and look at the implementation inside this render function for PSReadLine, and if we actually just go ahead and minimize the new one that I'll show you in a second of render for a screen reader, the force render, it renders line by line. If you've made an edit, it parses everything. It figures out, it literally does like a syntax tree parsing. It figures out what syntax highlighting there should be. And then by necessity to like add colors and stuff, it goes ahead and blanks the whole buffer in the background and rewrites it all, which makes a lot of sense for what it's trying to do visually. It can put the control characters that control the colors for the tokens that you may have edited into the right places and do all of these things. But that doesn't really work when the output goes to the screen reader and it's just every single character, because now you've literally repeated what's previously been rendered. And if you're somebody who's not looking at it but listening to it, it's practically useless, which is why we've disabled it. You just get this bunch of garbage of well, I don't know what I just typed. I don't even know what it's reading because it's almost to you as a user with like visual issues, just kind of randomly reading stuff. So I actually have gone ahead and fixed this. I'm very proud to say it's actually, we've moved this needle forward like a whole bunch. It's far from perfect, but this was actually an ask over from the VS Code team. They have been working on improved accessibility inside VS Code for terminals specifically. They do some really cool stuff, like if you have ever used, you know, your incremental history search in a regular buffer, like in a regular terminal here. I've loaded PSReadLine, but let's go ahead and do that. Like hit Control R. In VS Code, you now get this little palette up here, which, since they have full control over the window, can be really nicely rendered out to that screen reader. Look, as I'm moving through these items, GXN, it's actually reading these pieces. But if you had this over in PowerShell, under a screen reader or other shells. This is not unique to PowerShell, and this is why they started doing this. If you're in Z shell, if you're in Bash, all these other shells, and you hit Control R, ooh, I haven't loaded PSReadLine. Give me a second here. Import module PSReadLine. And if I hit Control R, well, we've got this like status line prompt, back iSearch, and all of this actually will then show you the same issue we've got is not necessarily unique to us, because now we're like changing multiple lines as we're going through history, and it's just not a accessible experience. So they've brought a bunch of accessibility into VS Code. The thing is, the way they do this is through their shell integration script, and this is kind of why it came back down to my boat. If you remember, I mostly maintained the PowerShell extension for VS Code along with Patrick and Sydney. And one of the things that this VS Code team wanted to do a couple years ago was, hey, we have the shell integration and we need to inject it into PowerShell. And I was like, well, you know what? We do the same thing. We have to inject something into the PowerShell REPL loop, and we do it inside of PSReadLine. There's a hook inside of PSReadLine that the PowerShell extension, PowerShell editor services uses to make itself work, and that we taught the VS Code team to also use. Well, that kind of requires PSReadLine to be available. And as you can tell, PowerShell itself is the one going, hey, you're in a screen reader. We're just not going to load PSReadLine because we know how broken it is. So when it came down to brass tacks, it was, you know what? We can't really continue to do this. We need PSReadLine to be somewhat accessible to users using a screen reader, more so than it currently is, because PSReadLine itself completely non-accessible. And honestly, even if you don't have PSReadLine loaded, which is what PowerShell dumps you into, it still doesn't work great. It was not at all on par with other shells. You would also often get a bunch of repeated characters with like that basic REPL implementation inside of PowerShell, mostly because we don't really maintain it. We're expecting you to use PSReadLine. So we go over to a pull request here. I've been working on this pretty much since I broke my arm. July 18th was when I first opened this PR, but that was after a month of looking at it. We've got actually almost everything working. I mean, my list here is things that are not known to be supported and things that are only partially supported. And like a big one to call out is colors aren't going to work, right? You have to re-render to move those tokens around to colorize stuff properly. Inline predictions, just flat out not going to work, right? If you have to read out the text that's in the buffer, which is kind of our limitation, well, if you have text past where you are, it's going to get read back out. Same with list view and menu completions. But things that do work is, well, all of the tests other than the tests around those features that I had to disable. Text selection works, multiple lines mostly works. There's caveats here, no continuation prompt. Visually wrapped lines are now working properly. We had to do a couple prototypes to get that right. And I actually, in kind of the last hour, not this literal last hour, but last week, it felt like last hour. I was like, you know what? I actually have a way to do the status prompt in here really cleanly in this implementation. So what is key, digit argument, and that incremental history search does work in this screen reader implementation. Those tests pass. Let me go back to VS Code here. A little demo. So I've now run I've run PowerShell. You can see it still didn't import PSReadLine. I've done this with my launch config. That actually is forcibly loading my PSReadLine that I just built and enabled the new screen reader option and loaded up the shell integration script from VS Code. So all of these things can get plugged in. Now I can actually do something like git. Oh, it's debugging. I'm sorry. Pause the debugger. Turn off my breakpoints. That is why it's reading more stuff. Okay, all breakpoints disabled. But look at that, I deleted GET and I actually read it out as I deleted TEG because I hit backspace, 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 and it only read that stuff out. And it's actually doing exactly what we needed to do. It's reading the text as I've written it. If I go back over it, that's fine. It's reading the characters that I'm mousing over or cursoring over. I can delete a character, and instead of the whole buffer being re-rendered, there's differential rendering, and that's kind of the key point. We get the common prefix between what we previously rendered and what we're being asked to render now, so we can minimize the amount of text that changes. It's actually, if you know much about control sequences, I deleted a line in here. If you know much about control sequences, what we do is once we know where the text changed in that buffer, we literally set the cursor to that location and we emit a 0J control sequence, which is, hey, clear from where the cursor is onward. And then we write out a substring. We've substringed out from the common prefix that we found, which was, math was the answer to all of this, the difference. So I can go back over here. Let me finish. Let me actually do something cool and hit tab and actually get a completion here. It actually did complete get child item. And you know what? That's a whole different buffer. So it did have to read get child item. But that's not being reread. We did change the buffer. So it's working exactly as intended right there. Now I can cursor over these. I'm going to delete the C. And the trick is we're not going to see GET dash read. We're just going to see HILDITEM. We deleted the C. It read that we deleted the C. And then it read what has changed in the buffer after that. Would I like that to be a little better? Yes, but we're pretty much bound to, we have to omit what's been changed, but we cannot omit anything more. And that's like the long and short of this implementation. It has been through, it's been through a lot. If I move over to the commits here, we've been working on it over and over. There were a couple different ways we could use to detect screen readers. VS Code uses Electron, and I went through the Electron code base and figured out how they detect screen readers to be like, hey, can we do this right? And I tested their version and learned the hard way that it won't work for us because we're not a windowed app. We kind of had to go back to the original. Their comment in the Electron code base, since it's open source, you can read it, says this way we do it is known to be a little buggy, but we don't have another option. So we had to change that back around. It's the system parameter screen reader check. Predictions obviously don't really work in here, not the inline predictions anyway. That's kind of like a future. Is there an accessible way we could do that like VS Code does? Because if I'm down here and hit, Control R, since I'm in VS Code, and I've actually been able to load the shell integration script, which means I get VS Code's screen reader optimizations. But they've been doing a lot with completions and buffers too. So what I'm really hopeful is that since we've moved this needle forward and we can actually load PSReadLine for VS Code, let them inject the shell integration script and keep working with them on that they can go, hey, that inline prediction engine is running. The predictions are there. Let's go ahead and present these accessibly. Since they have a lot more control over that, since they kind of own, you can almost view this as a whole windowing system because VS Code, it's its own self-contained window with panels that they can do. So I'm looking forward to future improvements there. But yeah, we've been through it and we got this working, and then kind of the question came up, what about tests? And that was a whole fun week and a half or two in and of itself. But then once we had the test in place and actually were able to run, I set this up to use a fixture, so we reran all of our existing tests. We were able to go back and improve this implementation even more. Dongmu and I have gone through a couple reviews, have found a couple bugs. So far, I've been very proud, and we're really looking forward to getting this merged in and having it show up in VS Code Insiders as soon as possible. Honestly, it is the goal here. So yeah, that's the new screen reader support. It's been fun. I'm looking forward to more of this. You know what? It's relevant to my work. It's VS Code. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing that screen into my demo.
Thanks, Andy. That's awesome. And having been with you as you've worked on this, great work. Really appreciate it. With that, Mikey, how about a docs update?
Sure.
Mikey, okay.
Yep. Here we are. Sorry, my machine was taking a while to catch up. So I've been heads down doing a lot of background docs work for DSC. And just today, actually, we published the standard out schemas, the documentation for what DSC expects a resource to emit to standard out. Previously, we described how you can put things in your resource manifest to define it, but we hadn't explained, well, what data does DSC actually expect me to send back, right? We kind of referenced it, talked about it, but we didn't have reference documentation and schemas for that. We have that now, so that should make integration work quite a bit easier. Let me grab that link for you. And I'm currently working through a resource design guide, which, to be clear, will not tell you how to write code to do these things, because I'm not going to write different versions of that article in C#, Go, Rust, C++, Python, PowerShell, etc. So what this design guide is going to do is talk more about the things you need to think of when you're implementing a DSC resource, and the specifics of what you need to do for things like emitting messages and practices around defining semantically useful exit codes. When should you implement different DSC operations? Do you need to implement test at all for most DSC resources now? The answer is no, you can use synthetic testing. But we're addressing those types of concerns and design questions in a cohesive guide to make the questions that you have around what am I even doing here a whole lot easier to answer. And then you know best the context of your software component that you are writing resource for. So we don't really try to tackle that very deeply, and we're not tackling how to write Rust or C# or whatever, because that's better left to the eventual helper libraries around that, and sample guides for here's how you implement your first resource in Go or your first resource in C# or whatever. But it's all just kind of moving. It takes a while.
Yeah, let me just interject here too. I want to thank Mikey for all his hard work on this. He owns the DSC space, and I couldn't manage those docs without him. And there's been a lot of behind the scenes work there. Not a lot new to talk about in the PowerShell docs this past month. It's just been in maintenance mode, and I've been busy with the rollout of our new pipeline based on the new Plat EPS, and preparing for Tech Mentor. So Mikey's been holding down the fort and working hard on this DSC stuff. And I think that's our docs update.
One last thing to say on the docs update. Heiss has already been praised a little bit earlier, but I want to go ahead and shout him out again. I took a couple of weeks of vacation last month, and while I was away, I came back to find that the team had done a bunch of implementations, and Heiss had come around behind them and drafted reference documentation for those new implementations, which is how I initially figured out what had happened while I was away, which is great. It's just been super helpful, both in filing docs issues and actually drafting stuff and providing fixes. We just merged a fix to documentation today from Heiss, where in the course of my drafting, I had forgotten to fill out a field, and so I just left it, as I sometimes do when I'm scaffolding docs, with the body text blah, which I did not pay any attention to and accidentally shipped. And somebody said, hey, why does this just say blah? And so Heiss went and wrote the documentation for that, and I was able to review it and get that pulled in. So thank you for saving me from my own mistakes and for all those contributions.
That's awesome. Thanks to both of you. And Sean, I thought maybe you didn't get the memo, but as somebody pointed out in chat, you're the thought leader. So there you go. We have a demo. I think we have a demo. Andre, are you here?
Yep.
Oh, awesome. I think I see. Let me make you a presenter, and away you go. There you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to.
Welcome.
wait. Okay. Oh, it doesn't want me to share my screen. Just give me a sec.
Your screen? Right? Are you still with us?
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So let me share my screen and let me know when you can see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
Great. So we're going to quickly talk about PowerShell being not only an automation tool, but also a kind of data analysis and data visualization tool, which supports data-driven decisions. And there are three pieces to this picture, actually. First is a PowerShell, which can process data and kind of manipulate and transform data. And then two other pieces is .NET Interactive and Jupyter Notebooks. And .NET Interactive offers a PowerShell kernel for Jupyter Notebooks, so we can kind of use them to visualize and run code. And on the other hand is something called Vega, which is basically a visualization grammar based on JSON. And that allows us to create a whole bunch of nice interactive visuals in a relatively simple manner. So if we look at it, all of this combined works something like this, right? For example, if we already have some kind of a Jupyter spec, which basically looks something like this, is just a whole bunch of JSON, we can visualize it relatively simply, right? Just by piping something into a special command that comes with .NET Interactive, and I put like a pull request into their repo to fix some of this, but now everything works. So, and it becomes interactive because of Vega and how it works. But if we want to make it more exciting, there is a way to work with graphs and some of the Bicep stuff that I'm working on. And for example, this data source is basically something out of the internet, and it has all the parent-child relationships within it. So if we want to represent like graph-based data, we can just pull the data from somewhere. In this case, this is just a simple demo data, but we can pull it, we can kind of process it. And in this case, I'm just grouping those things, creating vertices, creating edges in a graph, and then it basically displays all this stuff relatively easily, right? We can kind of change the size of it and so on and so forth, and make it more nice looking. And the last but not least is, as Steve mentioned, Bicep today, and as part of my kind of daily work, I work a lot with Bicep. So sometimes we have pretty big Bicep templates, which become complex really quickly. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make a tool which can kind of unfold all of these Bicep templates, find the connections inside of them, and show all of these details in kind of more concise way, let's say. So if you give it you know, a path to the root file, it can basically build a graph and then visualize a graph in this manner, which shows that all of these files that are sitting behind the main entry point and all the other elements like parameters and so on. But the most exciting piece is DSM, which stands for Design Structure Matrix, which kind of allows us to break these into clusters and show connections between clusters. So it basically breaks your system into different pieces, tries to clusterize them based on certain algorithms, and then tries to minimize the interdependencies between this cluster. So it kind of shows how your system might be structured if you wanted to minimize interdependencies. But what I'm trying to get to here is that PowerShell is not only a tool that gives you an ability to automate stuff, but it also gives you an ability to collect the data, process the data, and visualize the data using, some of the other tools out there. That's probably all I wanted to say today. Thanks.
Thank you, Andre. That is really fascinating demo, and thank you so much for sharing that. If you can, if you'd like, please drop into the chat. I know there's some questions and comments for you in there. If you could drop in a link to the repo so that folks can check out your project. This is really interesting. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, folks, we have once again reached the end of our monthly kind of show. Let's plan on seeing each other. Was it September is what we're going to be rolling into? So that'll be as we're getting closer to our release train, things like that. So look forward to seeing everybody come September, and I hope you have a great end to your summer. So thanks, everyone. Enjoy PowerShell. Have a great day.